Ditch the acrylic washes and graduate up to the most powerful tool in your mini painting toolkit, the oil wash. Oil washes are one of my favorite ways to apply shading to a mini. It's not quite as tedious as painting in the shadows by hand, and it doesn't have that same coffee staining appearance that an acrylic wash has. With one cheap starter set of oil paints, a jug of odorless spirits, and some plastic cups, you can mix up enough oil wash to keep you painting minis for months and months to come. Plus, you also have access to any color imaginable that you can mix up with those starter paints. In this video, I'm going to show you how to mix up some oil washes, apply them to your mini, and finally put the finishing touches by using some cotton swabs to remove the excess wash from where we don't want to apply the color. Mixing up oil washes is pretty easy. All you need are some plastic cups, some oil paints, and odorless spirits. Start off by pouring a little bit of odorless spirits in a plastic cup, just enough to cover the bottom. Then take a large flat brush and squeeze out a pea-sized amount of paint onto your brush. I'm using burnt umber here. Mix the paint into the odorless spirits until you get a wash that has a thin, watery consistency but leaves even coloring when pressed against the side of the cup. One of the great strengths of oil washes is the ability to mix up any color wash you may need. All it takes is a basic starter set of oil paints. These small tubes also last a very long time as you're just squeezing out a pea-sized amount. In fact, this set that I'm using here cost me $20 at my local art supply shop, and I've been using this now for 5 or 6 months at this point. And I still have yet to even start to make a dent in the amount of paint in this tube. One of the key strengths of oil washes is that you can easily create any color wash you need for your project, as well as any consistency of wash that you need for your project. Maybe for one project you need a little thicker of a wash with a little stronger coloring, and maybe for the next one you need a thinner wash that's a little more watery and goes on a little more smoothly, but doesn't leave as strong of shading behind. With oil washes, you can achieve that. Applying wash to a mini is very easy. Once you mix up the color washes you need, simply load up a flat brush with wash and press it to the mini so that it flows into the crevices of your model. Some artists prefer to varnish their models first to help the wash flow into the cracks better, but I don't generally do that. There's nothing wrong with that step, it's just not something that's part of my workflow. I like to apply the wash liberally all over the model, and when it starts dripping off onto your desk, you know you have enough wash on. At this point, it's time to let the wash dry for 5 to 8 minutes to let the color start to set, and then we'll remove the excess wash from the flat surfaces where we don't want the coloring to be applied. I typically like to listen to 3 to 4 good 90s alternative rock songs, so that's about how I keep track of time. So it's not a precise time measurement. You don't have to be 5 to 8 minutes exactly. Anywhere in the ballpark of 5 to 15 minutes is going to be fine. So now that we have our model liberally coated in oil wash, it's time to go ahead and remove the excess wash from the areas where we don't want that color to be applied, namely the high points where we would highlight. In this next step, I'm going to show you how to use cotton swabs to remove the excess wash from the areas where you don't want shading applied, which will give you a very nice finish. And bonus tip, that linseed oil that's going to be left behind once we remove the oil wash is going to give you a great medium for some wet blending highlights if you need to. Once we get the wash on the mini and give it some time to set for a bit, it's time to remove the wash from the areas where we don't want it. To do this, we simply grab some large flat cotton swabs and lightly rub the model where we don't want the shading to be applied. Note, it's very important that you don't press hard with the cotton swab because that cotton swab will flex into the cracks and crevices and will actually scoop out the wash from where we want it if you put too much pressure on the swab. This technique is known as painting by subtraction, and we are subtracting the oil paint from where we don't want it so the base coat can shine through. One of the key benefits of this technique, however, is the thin layer of linseed oil that's left behind and after wiping away the wash. This thin layer gives us a medium for wet blending and some highlights, which will be covered in a future video. I love the oil wash technique because with just a handful of paints you can mix up any wash that you need and not have to rely on having certain washes on your shelf at the time that you actually need them. Oil washes also take a little longer to dry than acrylics, which means that if you mess up with the wash, you can just wipe it away and start over. You're not going to have that coffee stain effect, you're not going to have any ugly rings or any weird tinting on the flat surfaces. Just simply wipe away the excess wash and reapply if needed, or just, I don't know what I was going with that. Oil washes take longer to dry than acrylic washes, which means that it gives us a little more forgiveness in how we apply the wash. If we get wash pooling where we don't want it, we've got plenty of time to wipe it away before the color sets and stains the model. I also like the added benefit of having that thin layer of linseed oil being left behind, which gives me the ideal medium for doing some wet blending with my highlight. Finally, with oil washes, you're not limited in color selection. In this video, I mixed burnt umber and phthalo blue to create a kind of sort of black wash, but had a little more coolness temperature to it than just a straight black wash. Good luck finding that in a pre-mixed wash off the shelf.